January always made the building restless. I worked security monitoring for a regional distribution office, mostly watching empty rooms on quiet nights while snow piled up outside. During winter storms, motion sensors triggered constantly. Wind rattled doors, heated systems clicked on and off. Most alerts were meaningless, except the records room. It was a sealed space near the center of the building, no windows, no vents that moved air, no reason for motion ever. That was the point of it. The first alert came at 1:43 a.m. during a snowstorm. I pulled up the camera, nothing. The room looked exactly as it always did. Shelves, boxes, concrete floor, the motion indicator reset. I assumed it was a glitch. Then it happened again. Same room, same time, same storm conditions. I started checking the logs. The alerts went back years. Always January, always between 1:40 and 1:50 a.m. Always during snowstorms or extreme cold. Never once in any other month. I reviewed archive footage frame by frame. Most nights showed nothing at all, just the static gray stillness of an empty room. But every night, there was a change so subtle I almost missed it. A dim shift along the far wall. Not a shadow exactly, more like light level dropped briefly, as if something passed between the camera and the wall. But there was nothing there. No door, no vent, no reflective surface, and the camera never adjusted exposure, ruling out technical explanation. The motion sensor kept triggering away. Facilities told me the room had been an office decades earlier. It was removed after a renovation, sealed off, and repurposed for storage. When I asked why, they hesitated. An employee had been found there one January morning after a storm. No witnesses, no cameras back then. The building had been nearly empty due to weather. After that, the office was quietly removed from use. The alerts continued every January. Eventually, management disabled the motion sensor for that room alone. The camera still runs. No one watches it anymore. January was always strange in the school. Snow muffled everything, hallways felt longer, sound carried in odd ways once the heating kicked on and classrooms sat empty after dark. I was a custodian, assigned to the evening shift 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., which meant I worked long hours after students had gone home. Most nights were routine. But in January, the motion lights started running and turning on by themselves. At first, it was easy to explain. Old sensors, temperature changes, air pressure from doors opening elsewhere in the building. But then I noticed something specific. It was always the same hallway. The older wing of the school. The one built decades earlier before renovations. The classrooms there hadn't been updated. Similar desks, lower hooks on the walls, faded murals near the floor. The motion lights came on one by one, spaced evenly apart, like someone walking. I never heard footsteps. I'd round the corner, expecting a late student or a teacher who'd stayed behind. The hallway be empty. The lights would stay on for a full minute, then shut off behind me as I walked away. This only happened in January. One night while cleaning a classroom in that wing, I noticed the chairs were stacked the way I'd left them the night before. 2 were slightly out of line. One desk had been nudged forward. Nothing dramatic, just off. The next morning I found faint marks on the floor, small scuffs, short strides, like the soles of sneakers that had been dragged instead of lifted properly. They didn't lead anywhere, they just stopped. I asked the head custodian if kids ever stayed late in that wing. He said no one used those rooms in the winter. Heating issues, too cold. Later that week during a heavy snowstorm, the power flickered. Emergency lights came on throughout the building. That's when I saw them. At the far end of the hallway near the old classrooms, there were shapes where the light didn't quite reach. Not clear figures, just at knee height, then shoulder height. Too small to be adults. They didn't run, they didn't move fast. They just stood there. When the normal lights came back on, the hallway was empty again. No marks, no sounds. The next day I mentioned it to a teacher who'd been at the school a long time. She went quiet. She told me that years ago, before modern safety codes, the school had been used as a temporary shelter during a severe January weather. Families were housed in classrooms overnight during a prolonged power outage. Some children had gotten sick. A few were taken to hospitals. Not all of them came back. No memorial was ever placed in the school. Coat hooks swaying slightly in empty hallways. Tiny handprints appearing briefly in condensation on cold windows. Chairs shifted just enough to suggest someone had climbed down from them. Only in January and only after dark. and only in that classroom. I still work there, and every winter when the snow comes and the school goes quiet, I make sure the lights stay on a little longer than necessary because motion sensors still trigger, and whatever walks those hallways never seems to leave the building. January was the hardest month at the facility. Respiratory illnesses, weather delays, fewer visitors, the halls felt longer in winter, and the rooms felt smaller once the sun went down. I worked overnight as a nursing assistant doing rounds every hour, checking rooms, repositioning residents, making sure the call lights were off. By midnight, most residents were asleep. One wing, however, always took longer. The East Wing housed residents with advanced memory loss. Many residents were empty by January, beds stripped, doors left open until families came to collect belongings. The wing stayed dim to reduce agitation. That's where I noticed the pattern. Room 214, it was empty, had been for weeks. I knew because I was the one who stripped the bed after the resident passed away earlier that month. January 3rd, early morning, during my 1 a.m. round, I saw the nightlight on. I turned it off. At 2 a.m. it was on again. I checked the maintenance log. The switch wasn't faulty. I made a note anyway. Over the next week it kept happening, only at night. Sometimes the curtain was pulled halfway closed. Sometimes the bed rail was raised on one side. Once the blanket, clean, freshly laundered, was folded at the top of the bed. No one was assigned to that room. I asked the nurse if anyone had been temporarily placed there, and she said no. Admissions were frozen due to flu precautions. I started paying closer attention. During rounds, the air in front of room 214 felt warmer than the rest of the wing. Not by much, just enough to notice when you stepped inside. Once I found the call light cord lying across the mattress. Residents in that wing often used them without remembering how, but there was no one there. The security cameras didn't show anything unusual. No one entering, no one leaving, just staff passing in the hall. Late one night during a snowstorm, the power flickered. Emergency lights came on. As I walked past room 214, I saw movement inside. Not a figure, not a shape, just the slow depression of the mattress like someone sitting down carefully. It lasted a second. Then the mattress rose back to normal. I didn't go in. The next morning, the day shift found the bed rail lowered and the blanket unfolded. No one said anything. By February, the room stayed empty the way it was supposed to. The night light stayed off. The air felt the same as the rest of the wing. A new resident eventually moved in. Room 214 stopped changing after that. But every January during night rounds, I slow down when I pass that door. Because even now, years later, staff still say that room feels occupied, long before it ever was.